Coming up in today's program, an outlook on racism in Malaysia. This is T70 News Report. My name is Maira Athirah, bringing the news to you. In the month of March 2020, racism has been the social change that the public have been fighting for. In the United States of America, hashtag BLM, Black Lives Matter, has been widely used on social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. And because of this, Malaysians did not miss the opportunity to be a part of the social change. Racism is defined as not only prejudice against a certain race due to the color of a person's skin, but it is both prejudice combined with social and institutional power. Racism is an issue that is faced by people of color all over the globe, and because of recent occurrences, the public has set to change the reality of these people. One of our own, Nursali Nabihah, is currently in UiTM Dengkil, seeking people's view on racism in Malaysia.
Thank you, Maira Athirah. I am Nursali Nabihah reporting live from UiTM Campus Dengkil. I'm here with UiTM students to hear their voice regarding the issues of racism. Hi Miss, do you aware of the issues of racism?
Yes.
I see. What types of racism do you know?
There are many types of racism that currently happening in Malaysia. Firstly, cyber racism. It happened in the digital age. Secondly, the second type of racism that I've been watching is casual racism. A racism that people brush off because of how common it is in our daily life. Lastly, there is institutional discrimination. Institutional discrimination is about how Malaysians react to the immigrant population.
Thank you. Moving on to our next reporter, Sufian.
Casual racism. There is nothing casual about racism, but the term casual racism has emerged over the last couple of years in media coverage reporting on more extreme forms of interpersonal racism, such as racist slang and racist diatribes on public transport. These incidents occur on a seemingly casual or unexpected basis. While the media focus on these more obvious experiences of racism, in reality racism occurs every day in both blatant and subtle forms. Subtle forms of racism refer to what researchers have called everyday racism since the early 1990s. Everyday racism is so commonplace that it's often normalized and infused into daily conversations through jokes and stereotypes or through unconscious body gestures and expressions. Cyber racism is most commonly defined as racism which occurs in the cyber world. Online activities or published material that result in offensive comments in relation to a person's race, color, or national or ethnic origin have the same effect as similar offline activities. Cyber racism may present as racial hatred or cyberbullying. Institutional racism is distinguished from the explicit attitudes or racial bias of individuals by the existence of systematic policies or laws and practices that provide differential access to goods, services, and opportunities of society by race. Institutional racism results in data showing racial gaps across every system. For children and families, it affects where they live, the quality of the education they receive, their income, types of food they have access to, their exposure to pollutants, whether they have access to clean air, clean water, or adequate medical treatment, and the types of interactions they have with the criminal justice system.
Hello Miss, can I ask you some questions?
Sure.
Hi Miss, do you know some examples of racism that occurred in the world?
I do. If we're looking at cyber racism, we can simply find them on the internet. During this pandemic, a lot of people are discriminating and condemning Chinese people on social media just because the virus started on China. This is not good, as a racist on social media can influence so many followers.
I see. Do you have any further thoughts about racism that happening in Malaysia?
I do. Casual racism is something that Malaysians often do and get away with it simply because it has been normalized in the society. For example, the phrase Melayu Malas, shaming people for their skin color and disguising it as a joke, is something that occurs too often. On the other hand, we also have institutional racism. It is a discrimination against human classes. For example, a lot of people look down at immigrants that work on construction sites, essential services and plantation, which locals usually avoid.
Thank you, Miss, for your time. Okay, so that is all from me. Thank you.
Casual racism is called microaggression. It's a type of racism that people normalize by doing it in daily life. Datuk Seri Abdul Aziz Abdul Rahim, the Baling MP who told the Batu Kawan ME Kasturi Patul to apply powder because of her dusky skin color. Not only that, in Malaysia, it is common for people to joke about skin color. For example, they always say to people who have darker skin than them, I can only see you teeth in this picture. Other than that, some Malaysia are the loudest when it comes to Black Lives Matter. But also them, when they speak to their children, unity, later that Indian men will catch you. They implied that Indians are the bad people here. And then, there's also issues of Malays are a lazy race. For some, these are just jokes, albeit in extremely poor taste. For some, this is just a way to discipline children. But no matter how much we want to sugarcoat them, they are still toxic and totally unacceptable. Think also about those times when some of us women flinch and clutch our handbags when we see an Indian man walking by our table. Think about those times when you go to Kuala Lumpur's Farm Low Yacht Plaza to buy a laptop and think that the Chinese seller is going to cheat us out of our money. Think about when a Malay gets a scholarship to study abroad, but that success is still racially associated. For example, bolehlah sebab dia Melayu ada tongkat. It means she or he got it because he or she has an advantage. Lastly, think about those times when we criminalize, dehumanize immigrants and refugees in Malaysia. That's all I can get from our younger generation about racism. Back to one of our reporter, Nurul Syafiqah, ready to address the impact of racism onto Malaysia.
Racism affects society in many aspects. It involves their mental health, dignity and future career. Racism performs outrageous effects on society, on their mental health. They are most likely to suffer from overload stress and depression. They have to live with trauma mentally or even physically, and they might distance themselves from people for eternity. Apart from that, it also can affect their dignity by all those hate, profanities and judgment they receive from the racists simply because of their different skin color and where they came from. Everywhere they went, they might encounter judgments that can actually humiliate them in public. This racial discrimination will affect someone's future career. Some people are racist with picking their work partners as they specifically want their partners to be the same race as them. This will decrease the opportunity for people to have a job in the future.
For people who often experience racial discrimination in their lives, they tend to be more of an introvert. They will avoid society anytime they can and avoid going out with friends or family. They are most likely to develop trust issues in anyone they are close with simply because they had been stressed enough with the racism that occurred in his or her life for a longer time. This type of people are more sensitive than others and they overthink a lot than normal people do. Feeling abused mentally leads to having no self-confidence to face the public. Distancing themselves from others is something they think is the best solution, and that is the only thing they can do from having to face any discrimination ever again. They might face some issues regarding their weak behavior, which is actually an effect due to racism. Dignity is someone's pride. Victims of racism always feel like they have lost their dignity by being humiliated by the racist. It is something that they hope wouldn't happen to them. They crave acceptance from people just to make sure they are enough. The racists make them feel like a stranger in their own country. They hope for people to accept their differences, but some of the society view their differences as odd features that a human shouldn't have. This may result in feeling humiliated with themselves for the rest of their lives. For the worst scenario, if the whole family is affected, people might view them as an object, not a human, that had to live with their dignity being under the racist discrimination. They had to live knowing the fact that they are a monster for some but treasures to others. They seek society's voices and are unheard because their case is not as heavy as murder but is worse enough for them to face this alone. Society needs to stop being racist over giving people's job. We need to stop seeking for someone of the same race thinking we will get along if we speak the same language. They didn't think this through. Someone's father might struggle to feed their family because one of the factors where they couldn't get a job is because of their race. We need to stop with the stigma that defines every race in Malaysia. Imagine how hard it is for people to get a job, simply because the requirements for most of the jobs are wanting someone who can speak a certain language. Society needs to be educated and more understanding. They need to be more open about working with people of the same race. Not everyone with different races is as bad as they talk.
Thank you very much, Sally and also Syafiqah, for the insights regarding racism in Malaysia. We here at the studio hear the people's concerns loud and clear. Racism is not an easy issue to tackle, but not impossible either. So after we acknowledge the problem itself, it is important for us to ask ourselves this one question: how do we tackle racism in Malaysia? One article in Malay Mail suggested that we take a deeper look into the legal framework that is already in Malaysia. Current laws are wide and general and vague enough for people to condemn any racial-related comments as improper usage. We should follow suit the many democratic countries who have taken it upon to take a look into their legal frameworks and make their laws much more specific and also comprehensive, not to make penalizing much more easier, but to make sure that the law is addressed properly and in detail to make sure that nobody abuses it or misuse it for something that is not related. Other than that, since racism is a problem that is deeply rooted in our society, it is important for us to make sure that education is one important way for us to tackle racism itself. This is because we should emphasize on the lessons of kindness and considerations towards all people regardless of their backgrounds and social status. Lessons should be implemented according to their age group. Like many other countries, they have a specific course for secondary students and also all university level students to learn the ethics and also etiquettes of using social media, so that they will learn the proper way to express whatever they want to on social media. Other than that, the article also suggests us to take a look on the media, how the media plays a huge role in forming an image regarding race. As we can see now, media only focuses on stories that are negatively narrated and sensationalized. So it is important for media to be diversified, to also point out and give spotlight to where it's due, such as where race celebrates each other. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode. I hope these informations have been enlightening for every single person who is watching. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in to T17 News Report.